For 5 years, I built a new master plan around every 3 months, and every single one of them failed. I kept abandoning my plans, sometimes 4 days, sometimes 4 weeks in. And the hard thing wasn't that I just abandoned it and got a little off track. Oftentimes, I literally completely had forgotten the plan that I created, that I had so much trust in, that this plan that I created would finally get me to my goal, finally get me to the life I wanted, the income, the whatever goal I had. I had so much trust in this plan and then completely forgot it, not just got off track. And if you ever experience that in your life, then I'll show you how to finally fix that. And let me tell you right away, there's nothing wrong with you. I figured that out after a while. It's just not the concept you should use to get somewhere in life. The best and most successful businesses in the world don't use the concept of master plans because it's just not that good. And why? Because master plans are static, okay? It's a one-time created static plan. And reality is ever changing, okay? One of the universal truths is, of course, change. The world and life always change a lot. That's why as soon as the static plan comes in contact with the ever-changing reality of life, it crumbles to pieces. It doesn't work anymore. So you quickly forget it. You got off track. And I keep running through the cycle again and again and again for 5 years and kept trying to force myself harder to stick to the plan and tried everything in my power to stick to the plan a little longer and finally pushed through for these 12 months, 6 months, or at least 3. But it just was the wrong concept. I figured that out after a while. And in these 5 years, to be honest, I somehow got ahead because I still got some work done, obviously, but not nearly as much as I could have or started to get ahead after those 5 years, after my turning point, after I figured out one very, very important thing that I'm going to share with you in a second, the thing that all the most successful businesses in the world use instead of master plans. Okay, so I kept going through that cycle. And it was devastating because you constantly fail again. You make a new plan, you trust that plan. And the thing is, every time you fail again, you not just lose time, which is already horrible because time is the most valuable asset we have. You also lose something which is arguably even more important, which is the trust in yourself, the trust that you're actually going to do what you say you're going to do. So after 3, 4, 5 times of you making a plan and not sticking to it, you create it in your subconscious mind. It's not active conscious thoughts that you think, but they're in your subconscious. You create a self-image of someone who is not pulling through with what he starts. Someone who doesn't finish what he starts. And that's a horrible self-image to have. That's a very, very, very bad self-image to have. With that self-image, you're not going to get anywhere in life usually. It's going to be very hard. So these are some very, very negative effects that already completely explain why people who keep making static master plans keep failing and don't get what they want in life. Okay. And then beginning of 2025, I started reading that book, great book. It's called Good to Great from Jim Collins. And they investigated and researched all the companies who have been average before, who performed on market average, and then outperformed the market by 100% or more. So they were good before, somewhat good, usually like average companies. And then they did not just become better, they became great companies, the greatest in their field. And they asked, what the hell did they do? How did they pull this off? And now, when it really rang a bell for me was when I read that, I mean, it's a common practice in business to have a master plan, right? To say, hey, we're not where we want to be with this business. Let's make a change initiative, 1 year, that's the master plan. Let's go with that. Well, all of these businesses that went from good to great had in common that they did not have that they did not have a change initiative, that they did not have a master plan. They all had that in common. So that's super interesting. I thought, and I was like, let's hold on to this for a moment. This could explain a lot about my life that happened so far. So for now, I think we understand that these very, very successful businesses figured out that master plans and change initiatives, how we often do it. I finally want to get in shape in the next 12 months. I finally want to make $100,000 a month. I want to get there in 12 months. Like all of these change initiatives that we sometimes create for either our business or our life. That's a foolish thing to do. Yeah, I mean, I could now pull up thousands of examples of weight loss courses, 30-day courses, and we could now study the yo-yo effect on how almost everyone bounces back, right? Because one-time change initiatives are BS. They are BS because they're static and reality is ever changing. So what did all of these businesses, going back to the book, and I really recommend reading that, who were average before and then turned out to be a great company. So what did all of them have in common? They, instead of having one master plan, had one system for continuous improvement. Okay, an ongoing system that is usually very simple, that can't fail, and is ongoing to constantly get a little better, to constantly just get 1% better every single week. That is it. No magic pill, no magic perfect planned out master plan on a big whiteboard created by some super minds. Nothing of that. No magic. Just a simple system for continuous improvement. How did that look like in my personal life? Because I told you I was going through that cycle of creating a new plan, going off track, even forgetting about the plan, and it felt horrible. Well, how did I then finally figure it out? So I read that book and I understood I need a system for continuous improvement. So I will share in a second with you what is the exact system that I used, and you can apply it to your own life. Before that, to even make a system for continuous improvement work, we have to do one thing, the same thing that all of these businesses did as well. Having clarity on what is the number one KPI we're optimizing for here. Okay, for example, a business has a number one KPI. We're optimizing for profit per new customer. Okay, so that's one KPI, a performance indicator, a number that tells me how good something is working. Okay, and this is usually very valuable to have that. And you need to have that even for your life. For your life, a KPI could be happiness level on a score from 1 to 10. That's a KPI. It's very simple, but that's a KPI. Okay, and before I show you exactly the system, you need to figure out what is the number one KPI that I am optimizing for in my life. What do I really want? What matters to me? Not what is the exact end goal. That's not even that important, because that again would bring us back to the concept of a master plan. Exact end goals, being super specific is often hard. And often then even we start to self-sabotage ourselves because we think we don't deserve that exact end goal, and so many negative side effects. All of that doesn't happen with the system for continuous improvement. If you just get 1% better and every single week and just only focus on that. Okay, so what is the number one KPI you're optimizing for? Okay, for example, I am optimizing for freedom. You could measure freedom score 1 to 10. How do you judge that? Okay, if I have to be at 9 a.m. at a certain place every single day, 5 days of the week, that would bring my freedom score down. If I can't travel to whatever place I want to travel to, whenever I want to travel to without asking someone, well, that will bring my freedom score down. And if that goes down, I will feel bad because freedom is important to me personally, right? So that's one example of a KPI. I can't answer the question, what is the right KPI for you? You have to answer that question for yourself. And that might require some thinking, but it is some very valuable thinking, because this is the only system that at the end of the day will get you to places you actually want to go, instead of just staying in a doom loop of master plans that don't work, that you abandon again and again and again. Okay, so once you know that one KPI, and let me tell you, like, if you can't define one perfect one in the beginning, that's fine. okay, then take 2 that are somewhat good. You can measure 2 KPIs and optimize for them and start with that and then improve over time. 2 mediocre KPIs to optimize for are better than 0, right? It's better than 0 clarity. So start somewhere and try to improve. Don't try to get everything perfect right away. That's very, very hard to do. It's again the same concept. You can't figure out everything in your mind. You need to somewhat have a starting point and then get into action as fast as possible and iterate, okay? So all of these businesses, as we said before, had the system for continuous improvement. So I implemented that for my personal life. I then also at the same time was in a coaching, and I found a system in that coaching from my mentor where I was like, this is perfect. This is it. This is the system for continuous improvement that I'm now going to use for my life. And it's very simple. It goes like this. You pick one day a week. I pick Sunday. You pick a certain time slot on that day where the likelihood of you missing this time slot because of whatever reasons is very, very low, okay? Where you usually can't be distracted. If you know you go out every Saturday and stay up very long until 6 a.m., don't pick Sunday 8 a.m. as a time slot, okay? Pick a time slot where you can't fail, right? Make this easy for you. Okay, so you pick that, and in that time slot, you have a meeting with yourself. I call it the Felix meeting. And in that meeting, I look at the number 1 KPI for my life, or the top 2 KPIs for my life. Okay, I look at that. How good am I at making progress towards optimizing that? What's my progress? Yeah, of course, you need to measure it for that. A good thing that I started doing is measuring that daily. So every single day, I do it even after specific tasks. I measure specific scores. And then what I do is I take my journal, take all of my notes, all of the tasks that I've done, and review my calendar, do all of these things. Everything that is somewhat connected to my number 1 KPI, I throw that on to my screen and I audit everything. And then I give all of that info, all of the texts, everything I've done, everything I've written down, everything I've thought throughout the week that I noted down, give it to an AI, and I'll just ask it a simple question, okay? I say, hey, try to read between the lines, figure out what's actually going on in my life. This is what I'm optimizing for. Tell me the 3 hard truths that I don't want to hear, but need to hear to get to my goal faster. And tell me the one thing that I need to change in the next 7 days in order to make sure that I will optimize this number 1 KPI that I have for my life better than I did last week. That is it. One system for continuous improvement. And for me personally, that has beaten the hell out of master plans. I tried master plans for 5 years. And in those 5 years, I got so much less ahead than in the 1.5 or almost 2 years since I implemented the system for continuous improvement. Okay? It was the same spiel for me. It was good to great. From master plans to system for continuous improvement. Okay? Because there is one thing that is simple enough to stick to it for a long time. Obviously, consistency is key. Sticking to it for a long time is key. These are compound interests, okay? The most returns you will earn after 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and so on, right? But this is one thing now that is finally simple enough. And again, like if you need to set an alarm on your phone to not miss this, set an alarm on your phone for every Sunday, 11 a.m. or whatever your time is. Make sure you don't miss this. Make sure you stick to this. This is one simple system to constantly get 1% better every single week. And now you don't have the problem anymore of having static master plans that as soon as they meet with reality, they crumble. No. Now you have an agile system and a system that constantly grows with you, a system that adapts to the changes of reality that are so constant, happening all the time, right? You will all the time have changes that you did not expect. But that's no problem with this system. It still works. The master plan would then be crashed. So long story short, that is it. That was the game changer for my life and also for my businesses, right? So instead of having a master plan, have one system for continuous improvement that you stick to. Because if you keep making plans that you keep abandoning and making a new one every 3 months, then you will get nowhere in life. I made that experience for 5 years. You don't want to make it too. But if you have one system for continuous improvement, this will take you to places that you have never even dreamed of.